Hi everyone, welcome to Awkward Author. My name is Alyssa Grasso, and this is my weekly vlog and podcast about my sometimes awkward, always awesome author life. This week I did want to talk a little bit about doing in-person author events, book promotion events, so I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but in terms of awesomeness this week, I am moving ahead with progress on my work in progress, my fourth book in my 4-book series, originally 3-book series, now a 4-book series. I am up to 29,000 words on this book. I said last week, I think it might come in around 60,000 words. I don't know, that's just a guess, but that kind of feels right to me just because of, the way I've mapped things out in the book. We'll see, because I do make changes as I go along. Yesterday I was writing and I just, threw a whole, scene plot point in there that wasn't there before. I think it works good, or I think it will work good, with stuff that happens later, but, it just was sort of, I don't even know where that came from, but, that's kind of how it goes. So that's something like, when people say, like, if you're a extreme plotter, if you write out outlines, then you're cheating yourself out of the creative flow, and I guess it depends on how you do things. Everyone does things differently, I know, but for me, even with an outline, I find as I'm going along, there are things that come to me, and I will add them in. Sometimes it ends up being a huge issue if I add something in that really like alters everything, but this is just kind of a little bit of I think it only adds to what I have already, I guess I will say. Yeah, it's hard to describe, a scene in a book that, I'm obviously not going to, give spoilers away and stuff like that. So I apologize for the vagueness here, but, that's the best I can do. I do find, and I think, a lot of writers experience this, is that when I'm in the midst of, working on something, there's doubt. There's like doubt that comes up. I have a dog walking around behind me if you're watching the video. There's also random closet doors leaning against, it looks like they're leaning against a wall, but they're not. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. Doubt, I was talking about, like, where you start to kind of doubt your ability to write a book, or even, just write something that isn't, completely awful. And that was kind of, at least at some point yesterday, that was kind of the feeling I had where, I'm just writing. I'm not like, going back and editing as I write. I tend not to do that because that can really slow you down. So I just want to, go full steam ahead, move forward. And I mean, there's things that I know will have to get fixed later, as I go back through it. But there's also like a feeling that I have that, like, oh, this might be awful, like when I go back to read this might be totally boring. It's not going to be interesting. It's supposed to be a thriller, and like, am I just like rambling here and not writing something interesting? It's a feeling that I get, that comes to me. And I kind of had that feeling, as I was working on the series, I was wondering, like, if it was even any good. And I had not too long ago gone back and started reading the first book in the series because I was like, this is going to need so much work, and, let me just take a look at it. And I started reading through it. I'm like, oh, this is actually like pretty good. Like, I'm enjoying this. Obviously it still needs, work and editing and stuff like that, but it's not awful. It's not as awful as I kind of thought it was in my head. So I have to keep that in mind too as I'm working, because I think when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to really know, like, how things are going and how it's going to turn out. And that was just kind of a feeling I was having yesterday, just sort of this, like, I'm just throwing words down to paper, but are they any good kind of feeling. And, I mean, some of them are going to get cut, some of them are going to get changed, but ultimately, overall, big picture, I think, it is a good story, and I think it will work and be hopefully an engaging, page-turning book. First I have to finish writing it, and I still got a ways to go. Like, I'm maybe at the halfway point, we'll see, of a first draft, and then comes the challenging part of getting these books, well, it's all challenging. But no, the next step will be challenging, getting everything kind of cleaned up and made sense. And, because I do have 4 books, and as I said, I've been changing things as I go along. There are things that I'm going to have to go back and change in the first book, and the second book, all along to get everything to make sense, because I've, made some snap decisions, I guess, rash decisions, but ultimately I think it'll make for a stronger book series. So as I think I've mentioned before on this podcast, I do participate in a group blog. It's called YA Outside the Lines. It's a blogger blog, so it has like a long address, but if you're interested in finding out more about it, you could just Google YA Outside the Lines and it should come up. I think it's like yaoutsidethelines.blogspot.com, whatever those blogger addresses are. Anyway, so what we do is basically like each day of the month, I don't think we quite have enough authors to have every day of the month covered, but there are a number of us, and so each day is somebody else's day. We have an assigned topic each month to write on. Now we can always go off topic and write about something else if there's something we want to promote or shout about, I guess, but in general, I guess we tried to stick to the different topics that we've decided on. And it's I used to do like daily blogs and keep those when that was kind of like the in thing, and it was overwhelming. I mean, I had more than one blog. I gave up at different points and then started again and stuff like that, as I think that's a pretty common experience. I mean, you can get burned out blogging when you're trying to write blogs every day, and then you're like reading other blogs and commenting on them and stuff like that. And for me, I love writing. I didn't love writing blogs, but to do one day a month is something I can actually, handle, and I kind of enjoy it. Sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it's interesting, and depending on the topic, it might get the creativity going, sort of thing. This month, our topic was talking about, I think that the actual topic, again, Alyssa goes off topic right now. I think the actual topic is what to expect from our school or library visits. So actually, like, aimed at either teachers or librarians. Again, these are young adult authors, so some of us have done or do school visits or library visits, and so it was a chance for us to talk about the programs that we do. Now, Alyssa, going off topic, actually kind of went a different route and just wrote more for authors, about what to expect from different types of library events, like that you would do as an author. So there's all different kinds of events you can do as an author to promote your books at libraries, but in general, there are things like, doing a talk at a library, or, doing a book festival, book fair type thing, author fair type thing, doing a panel discussion at a library. There's obviously a variety of ways to, kind of promote your books with libraries. I think at some point in my author career, I've done them all. I've done other, non-library events as well, and even done, I think, a couple of different school visits as well. So it's, it's a good experience to have, to do in-person events. Now, when my first book came out in 2011, my day job at the time, I worked for a book distributor. I was a sales rep for a book distributor, and we sold exclusively to libraries. And so, obviously, I knew a lot of librarians. I talked to librarians all day long. I drove around and visited libraries. I covered eastern half of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. So, obviously, I was on the road a lot. They're all pretty much day trip type things, because that's kind of like a pretty condensed area there. And, but I was visiting libraries a lot. I was talking to librarians a lot. So I did actually, through my contacts there, did a number of library events when my book came out. And then as well as that, when my book came out, I was involved in some different groups. So we did, like author groups where we would, do bookstore type, a group bookstore event or signing, different readings, and other just different events to promote our books. So I did a lot of in-person events, certainly in 2011, and then when my other young adult books came out in 2012, 2013. So I have a lot of experience with in-person events. Maybe kind of like blogging, I guess. Maybe I got a little bit burned out with doing them, because I don't really do too many in-person events anymore. And, I've kind of shifted my focus to more doing, if I'm going to do promotion stuff, to do online promotion. Personally, I feel that's a much better investment, both in terms of time and money. And there's different ways to look at it. I wouldn't say don't do in-person events, because I think they can be a lot of fun. I think they can be a great experience, and they are a good chance to gain more exposure for you and your books. Even if you don't sell directly at the events, which honestly, most events that I've ever done, you only sell a handful of books, so it's hard to justify, the time that you put into it and the effort that you put into it. But it can be good for you to get your name out there, and to gain new fans that you would not get otherwise just through online promotion. I do find that I've had that experience as well. Now, what I will say is it definitely depends on the sort of book you have, the sort of book that you're promoting, whether an in-person event might be a good fit for you or not. I will say this, if you are writing picture books, or a picture book illustrator, if you are somehow involved in picture book creation, there is definitely, at the right events, you will do very well. So, events that are geared towards families, and I should say, when I say events, I mean like literary themed events, book festival events. If you are doing, a family book festival or children's book festival, you will probably do well in terms of sales if you have a picture book that you're promoting. And I specified that like literary and book events are key, because I've done, even in the past, like we did like I don't know what it was, like a street fair, and there was something else too. There's another event, but they weren't specifically book events. Like, it was a group of authors. We, paid to get a tent or whatever it was, a booth, at one of these events. And it's like, if you're into books, you go to book events. The people that go to like these street fair type things generally are not into books. There was a guy next to us at one event, and he was selling candles, and they were like scented candles, but not like Yankee Candles or Bath and Body Works or something like that. These were like, tacky shaped candles. I guess I'm passing judgment there, but I remember he had like these beer scented candles that he was like promoting, and I mean, I can't imagine why anyone would want a beer scented candle, but apparently, there are two types of people in the world, and one of those types of people were the ones that were at that event. They were passing by our books and buying beer scented candles, and it was, it's fine. I mean, it was an interesting experience. It was like, okay, note to self, I'm never doing a festival or, street fair that isn't like specifically got like a book focus. So, that's just my little tip there. But if you are, like I said, if you're doing children's books, particularly children's picture books, I know, like, just from different events I've gone to with fellow authors, that you can do pretty well. You'll move, you should move some copies of your book. Obviously, it should be appealing and all that. But yeah, if you have a decent book, the right event, you can do well. Now, the other thing with children's books, if you're writing for even not just picture books, but like, middle grade books, elementary, readers, even to an extent up to teens. Now, my young adult is really for the older teens, but for the younger teens, school author events, school visit events, can be a good way to promote your book at the right, schools. If you have, good a good person organizing the event, whether it's a teacher or administrator or librarian, you can do well. First of all, you'll usually get paid. You'll usually get paid a fee, you should, to present to the school. So that should pay for, your time and travel and all that. And then hopefully you actually sell copies of your books. And there are different ways to go about this. If the school wants to, have a time when kids can purchase the books, or if you want to do pre-sales with like an order form type of thing, there are different ways to do it. And of course it depends on the school and what sort of financial resources. Sometimes the district itself will buy a bunch of copies of your book. If you're in like a wealthier, more affluent area, parents will probably buy books for their kids. If you're in like a less affluent area, there might not be the money to do that, but you should still get paid for your visit to the school. Now, what you get paid may depend. I know, I know authors who've done a lot of school visits, and there's a wide disparity in what authors are paid. Obviously, the bigger name authors can command a bigger fee to go do a school visit. So, but it is something definitely worth considering if you are writing for kids, writing for school age children. There's definitely a market there and a way to both promote your books and make some money from being an author, by doing these events. So something definitely to consider. But as for the rest of us, if you're writing for older teens, if you're writing for adults, it can be tricky, in-person events. Generally, you're not, unless you're like a huge, bestseller, household name type author, you're probably, going to lose money when you do different in-person events. So don't look at so much as it as a money-making opportunity, but look at it as a way to, promote your books, get your name out there. And so with that in mind, be mindful of how many events you commit yourself to, be choosy about things. I would say stay away from events where they're going to charge you to be a presenter or, to have a booth or something. There may be, times when that makes sense, but as an adult author, it's pretty tough to sell enough books at one of these events to justify that kind of cost, unless, you're doing it as sort of a, you're going to lose money on it, but you think it's good for your brand or your name to get that recognition out there. And one thing with doing events is you do get some media coverage sometimes out of it. I mean, it's not huge, but local press and stuff like that. So there is obviously the chance for a little bit of a long tail in terms of selling, even after the event is passed, as far as getting your name out there. But again, it's tricky. It's very tricky to do these sort of events and actually find, if you calculate the time, the driving expenses or travel expenses, and whatever prep you need to do, it's hard to actually like make it like a profitable event, but it can be fun. So that is one reason to do it, and I think it's a good experience to have. But as I said, I've kind of stepped back from doing in-person events. It's just maybe I got burned out. I don't say that I won't do them, at all in the future, but I'm definitely way, way more choosy than I used to be. I mean, I used to do stuff almost like, at least once a month I had an event going on, if not more than that, and especially when I had a new book coming out, I was pretty busy. And I mean, I see, when people have traditional deals, and when a bigger traditional deal, like I didn't have any kind of thing like this, but the publisher wants the author to go out on tour. They send them out on tour, meaning they go and do generally bookstores, possibly other events as well, and it's book signings and readings and whatnot. A lot of money gets put into this by the publisher because they're paying to fly authors all over the country and put them up in hotels and whatnot. it's a huge expense, and I don't understand how publishers justify that, because I know they are not, again, if it's like Stephen King or, a household name type author, okay, there's going to be so many people showing up for this event, they'll do it in an auditorium, they'll sell a ton of books, it'll make sense. But when you're just, even when I say, smaller author, you might still, make it onto like, the young adult bestseller list or something like that. But still, these like, bookstore events, do they really sell enough books to justify the cost of sending an author out on tour? I highly doubt it. And I guess, there is some benefit to it. I mean, that ensures that the stores will have the book in stock, I guess, for these events. And, I guess in order to have a good relationship with the bookstores, the publishers do have to, be sending authors there to do these events. The bookstores do want to have that. And so that's part of it too. I guess it's a little bit of a, I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of situation with the publishers and bookstores. But yeah, I don't know. I just, it boggles my mind that this is something we're still doing in 2020. And, it just seems like such a inefficient way to sell books. It seems like so much work and so much expense that goes into it. And I don't know. It's something that, kind of leaves me scratching my head when I see these things happening. But, and I see people, complaining all the time that social media doesn't sell books, nobody buys books based on Twitter posts, which, I don't know. I have bought books, because, I saw something on Twitter about them, but, maybe I'm just a weirdo. But at the same time, like when people make that complaint, I'm like, well, but how much time does it take to post something on Twitter? How much money does it cost? It doesn't, unless you're doing a promoted tweet or something, like it doesn't cost you anything, and the time is like minimal. Whereas, you see these like book tours happening, and authors having to, travel all over the country, and, publishers having to put out all this money to finance this tour. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, they sell books, but do they sell as much as what they're putting into it? I doubt it. In most cases, I really, really doubt it. So yeah, it's just interesting. Just stuff I think about, but and something I think you should keep in mind if you are thinking about doing in-person events or planning to do in-person events. Be mindful of the time and, expense to you, and time is money, guys, that you're going to put into it. And so be choosy, I think, about the events you do, but also it depends on what you do. If you're writing for kids, especially like picture books, that is something that's actually tough to sell online. In general, most of your sales are going to be print sales and not ebook. So that is a very different market than writing for the adult market, where you're going to see a lot of ebook sales, and print sales have kind of, taken a nosedive. That doesn't mean people aren't still buying print adult books, but it's different times than it once was. But yeah, if you're writing for kids, especially picture books, you probably do need to have some form of in-person events as part of your marketing plan, whether that is like school and library visits, or whether it's doing things like book festivals, or even just book signings in stores. Yeah, so those are my 2 cents. I don't know, that's probably more than 2 cents. 50 cents? I don't know. Those are my thoughts on, in-person events, and, my experiences with them. And if you want to know like more about in-person events, especially what some different authors do for their events, I do urge you to go visit YA Outside the Lines. I think the address is yaoutsidethelines.blogspot.com, but just Google, YA, the letters YA Outside the Lines, which is the name of the blog, the group blog, and you'll see a bunch of different authors talking about, posting about their posts. And I'll put a link to the blog in my description comment thing below, whether you're doing the video or listening as a podcast. In the podcast description, it should be there. I am losing my voice, guys, so I guess that's a sign that I've been talking too much and I need to sign off and go get some work done. So I am going to say goodbye for now. I will be back again next week. Like I said, I do put out new episodes of Awkward Author each week. They're available both as a video vlog on YouTube or as a podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you would like to know more about me, please visit my website, which is alyssagrosso.com, ALISSAGROSSO.com, and or you can visit awkwardauthor.com. And I thank you for tuning in each week, for listening or watching, and I hope you guys all have a great week. I will see you again soon. Take care, everyone.